Hello, I'm Jack Loevner, and I'm going to be interviewing my dad, Kirk Loevner, on 9/11. Where were you the morning of 2001, September 11th?
So I was living in Mountain View, California, and I was in my apartment at the time.
Do you, where were you when you first heard of the attacks?
Well, I mean, it was all over the news, so I was. Everybody immediately turned on the TV and was like focused on what was going on. It was like this enormous cultural event that riveted everybody. At first, we thought it was just a mistaken pilot that just got lost and flew into this building.
Yeah, so did you learn about it from the TV? Or, like, did somebody tell you? Or like, who
Um,
first told you?
I'm an avid news reader, so I might have been um, reading the news or something, but I mean, it was instant news once it happened, and then everybody just turned on the TV. There wasn't really social media at the time, and there wasn't even an iPhone at the time, so you didn't learn about it that way. But um, it's just kind of word of mouth. Like as soon as people heard about it, they told everybody they knew. I was dating mom at the time, and I called her up to make sure she was okay. Everybody was calling everybody to see if they were okay.
Oh, with mom in New York.
No, mom was in San Francisco, and I was in Mountain View. We were both in the Bay Area.
So why did you call her up to make sure she's okay if the attack was in New York?
Well, we didn't know what was going on. I mean, we didn't know if it was this we're being invaded by a foreign country. We didn't know that it was refined that it was just confined to New York. Like it was shaking everybody up to the core.
So
It
that
was
kind
really
of
bad.
switches me to my next set of questions. So what, like a lot of people's first thoughts when they first happened was as an accident on the first one.
Yeah.
What were your first thoughts when you found out about it?
Well, it's like, what the heck? How could that happen? Like, that's just really weird. Nobody even thought that it could be a tourist event or that somebody would have the mind to be able to turn an airplane into a bomb. Like, that wasn't even in the thought process of anybody. So, when the first one happened, nobody thought it was a terrorist event. It was when the second one happened, everybody's like, the light bulbs just went off with everybody. It's like, oh my God, they just turn these airplanes into bombs, and and we didn't know how many other airplanes in the country were turned into bombs, waiting to be flown into buildings. Like,
But
and they gave an immediate order to to ground every airplane in the sky, like thousands and thousands of airplanes. Find the nearest airport and get it down as fast as possible.
wow. So how did that your workplace or like how did the rest of your day unfold? Like when that just happened, was like the rest of the day really weird? Like probably the week. That whole week was probably really weird.
Yeah, yeah. The whole thing was it changed everybody. It changed the country. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but mom and I actually went out next the next week to New York. We had a trip planned in New York that we were planning, and we actually, because I was moving to New York, if you remember, with mom, and we the next week flew out there, and we saw the remnants of it. Like, we'll talk about that, I'm sure.
Did you know anybody who was personally affected by the attacks? Like maybe they knew somebody that was in the attacks, or maybe you knew somebody that was in the attack.
I mean, we read the stories about the 3,000 people that died, and the people on the planes that died, but we didn't personally know anybody. No.
Did it change like the next time you decided to fly? Were you
Oh
kind of
yeah.
paranoid?
Oh yeah. Well, the next week we flew to New York. Scared to death to fly at that point.
Especially New York. Well, that's kind of
Yeah.
odd to
Yeah.
fly there.
Yeah. No, people did not want to get on the airplane. It was not hard to get an airplane ticket after that. Nobody wanted to fly.
Do you remember this like the security steps before and versus now? Like what were some of the main differences between the security?
Yeah. Before that, yeah, I mean, you never had to take off your shoes. You know, they just do cursory checks at the airport. Like, it was a much faster and easier process, and you just never had to do all the stuff you have to do today.
Do you think about 9/11 any differently now than you did back then?
Um, well, it kind of cut at the heart of your sense of safety. Like, you think you're in this United States, the most powerful country in the world, and nobody can really touch you here. Like, they can't. We would shoot down a missile or a bomb before it got to us,
Right.
and that just shattered everybody's sense of safety. It's like, oh my God, they can really do nasty things. That terrorists could come in and do really harm the country if they wanted to.
Do you think it changed America in ways that are still around today? Like, do you think
Yeah, I think it opened up.
over 20 years ago still affects today?
Yeah, I think that we view terrorism in a much more serious way, and that we're not as innocent as we were prior to 9/11. I think it really took away the innocence that we had about our security and safety and the goodness of people in the world and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it really exposed and opened the hatred that people have for Americans, which is even more intense today than it was 20 years ago, in my opinion.
Was like seeing the memorial when we were in New York, did that bring up any emotions for
Yeah,
you?
we did. We saw that memorial. Yeah, that was a really well done memorial that we saw.
Yeah.
And made it more vivid and brought back a lot of memories.
For you specifically?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for everybody probably, but yes, for me. Mm-hmm.
So after that, right, you turn on the TV weeks after, like probably the same month, was every news channel, everything, like all that they could talk about is that, like,
Yeah.
did it seem like everything else stopped?
Yeah, yeah, that was the only news, 24/7, and then the you know, we weren't, for a long time it wasn't clear who actually did it. I mean, it was determined it was Al Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, but that was all over a period of weeks and months. That they didn't, when it happened that day, it was like, who the heck did that?
Right.
And it took weeks and months, and then finally they had the SEAL Team 6 or whatever go over there and shoot the guy in the head, but in Pakistan. But that took years. That was years later that
So
happened.
okay, talking about that, what was your reaction when you heard that Saddam bin Laden was killed?
I mean, that was significant. We got the guy who masterminded that whole thing. We also got people who were involved in the actual incident. There was some people terrorists who did not get onto the planes, who were part of the planning of the planes. There was some people stopped that couldn't get on the planes. They were put in jail in the Guantanamo Bay, and so but it took many years to do that, and it didn't really change the nature of what happened or the significance of what happened. But it created some closure, and it gave you a little bit of sense of justice.
Okay, so why do you think somebody like Osama bin Laden, like he wasn't born wanting to injure American civilians? Like, what made it where these terrorist groups, like, was it just like years of brainwashing and like just from their countries just hate Americans?
Yeah, but I push back on you a little bit. I think Osama bin Laden might have been, in fact, brought up in a culture and in a family that hated America, and certainly what he did, and they had a whole training program and inculcation program, and they would bring up these young children in an environment where they were taught to America is the enemy and to hate the enemy, and they'd have training guerrilla sessions and machine guns and training on shooting, and all kinds of terrorist techniques. Uh, that was their schooling. That's all they knew.
Yeah.
And they were taught to believe that killing Americans
This is
was
good.
what God wanted and God's wish.
Yeah, and
God is great.
and there's a video game that they would be playing where it's like that they would like their objective is to kill the Americans, and so that's kind of like what they grew up
that
with.
was their
Would you say?
whole being.
Would you say
culture.
Assad bin Laden is the one that made it that way, or he was a victim of his surroundings?
I mean, he was the mastermind 20 years ago of this event, but he had actually masterminded other events before that. So it was for a long time he was kind of the ruler in chief of this whole movement to terrorize America and kill the enemy and that kind of thing.
Well, I appreciate you allowing me to interview you, and thank you.